Good. Good evening. I'd like to welcome you to this January 9th, 2023 workshop session. Roll call, Madam Secretary.
Thank you, Madam President. Everyone is here. You, Louise, and myself, all accounted for.
Thank you. We ask you to please rise for the Pledge of Allegiance. As it concludes, we ask you to stay standing for a moment of silence. We had a recent tragedy in our school community, and we would just like to remember that family. I pledge allegiance to the flag We will now move on to an exciting portion of our meeting where we are going to swear in our 3 new board members, Mr. Greg Brown, Mr. Kristen Koke, and Mrs. Jennifer Nelson Williams by Judge Paul Felix. We ask Mr. Greg Brown if you would please join us with your family at the podium. We would like you to go first.
Okay. I state your name.
I, Greg Brown,
Solemnly swear that I will
solemnly swear that I will
support the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and the laws of the United States
and the laws of the United States
and the State of Indiana.
and the State of Indiana.
I will faithfully execute the duties of my office
I will faithfully execute the duties of my office
as a member of the Carmel Clay School Board
as a member of the Carmel Clay School Board
and uphold the Carmel Clay School's guiding principles
and uphold the Carmel Clay School's guiding principles
established by the Carmel Clay Board of School Trustees
established by the Carmel Clay Board School of Trustees
and the Carmel Clay School District.
and the Carmel Clay School District.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Mrs. Kristen Koke. I'll get that someday, Kristen, I promise.
You want your kids to come up too? Okay, very good. Please raise your right hand. State your name.
I, Kristen Koke,
Solemnly swear that I will
solemnly swear that I will
support the Constitution of the United States of America,
support the Constitution of the United States of America,
the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and the laws of the United States
and the laws of the United States
and the State of Indiana.
and the State of Indiana.
I will faithfully execute the duties of my office
I will faithfully execute the duties of my office
as a member of the Carmel Clay School Board
as a member of the Carmel Clay School Board
and uphold the Carmel Clay School's guiding principles
and uphold the Carmel Clay School's guiding principles
established by the Carmel Clay Board of School Trustees
established by the Carmel Clay Board of School Trustees
and the Carmel Clay School District.
and the Carmel Clay School District.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations.
Miss Jennifer Nelson Williams.
Very good. If I can get you to raise your right hand to take an oath. I state your name.
I, Jennifer Nelson Williams,
Solemnly swear that I will
solemnly swear that I will
support the Constitution of the United States of America,
support the Constitution of
the Constitution of
the United States of America,
the State of Indiana,
the Constitution of the State of Indiana,
and the laws of the United States
and the laws of the United States
and the State of Indiana.
and the State of Indiana.
I will faithfully execute the duties of my office
I will faithfully execute the duties of my office
as a member of the Carmel Clay School Board
as a member of the Carmel Clay School Board
and uphold the Carmel Clay School's guiding principles
and
established by the Carmel Clay Board of School Trustees
established by the Carmel Clay Board of School Trustees
and the Carmel Clay School District.
and the Carmel Clay School District.
So help me God.
So help me God.
Congratulations. We'll now take a moment and take a few pictures. If you'd like to take a picture with Judge Felix and your families, and then we invite you to come join us on the dais. We will now move on to the election of officers. Do I have a motion for president?
So moved.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion, if I may, to do a slate of candidates with uh, Katie Browning, you, remaining as president, Louise Jackson remaining as vice president, and myself remaining as secretary.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Any discussion? All right, all those in favor of taking a slate of candidates for president, vice president, and secretary as Katie Browning, president, Louise Jackson, vice president, and Jennifer Nelson Williams as secretary, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. We will now move on to appointments. Dr. Michael Beresford for the appointment of treasurer, deputy treasurer, approval of bonds for treasurer, deputy treasurer, and extracurricular treasurers. Lots of treasurers.
Thank you. Just for a little bit of background, each year it's necessary for the board to appoint a treasurer and deputy treasurer within the first 15 days of January. The administration recommends the board consider appointing Roger McMichael as treasurer and Kara Colrose as deputy treasurer. Further, it's recommended that the board approve public official bonds for the treasurer and deputy treasurer in the amount of $100,000 each. It's recommended that the board approve a position schedule bond for extracurricular treasurers in the amount of $50,000 for the high school, $20,000 for middle schools, and $10,000 for elementary schools and the ESC. Indiana Code 2026-45 requires personal bond for the treasurer, deputy treasurer, and any other individuals whose duties results in having them access to funds exceeding $5,000. So that's why these bonds are put in place. Additionally, the Carmel Clay Schools has a blanket bond of $1 million under the crime policy, which provides aggregate coverage for all employees. So these bonds are put in place kind of as insurance in case of crime or theft, that sort of thing. The recommended action is that we recommend that the board appoint a treasurer and deputy treasurer and approve public official bonds for the treasurer and deputy treasurer for the period of January 2023, December 2023. It's also recommended that the board approve a position schedule bond for extracurricular treasurers.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Second?
Second.
Any discussion? And just to clarify, once again, this is not salaries for these individuals.
Yeah.
This is like a bond insurance policy in case of.
And it's required by Indiana law.
Okay. Want to make that duly noted. All right, thank you. All those in favor of approving the appointment of treasurer, deputy treasurer, approval of bonds for treasurer, deputy, it's a tongue twister, deputy treasurer, and extracurricular treasurers, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion approves 5-0. We will now move on to appointment of general counsel. Dr. Beresford.
Each year it's necessary for the board to appoint general counsel on or before January 15th. The administration recommends appointing Mr. Andrew Manna of Churchill and Antrim as general counsel, and that would be our recommendation.
Do I have a motion to approve general counsel?
So moved.
Second? Second. Thank you, Ms. Jackson. Discussion. Any questions? All those in favor of approving Mr. Andrew Manna from Churchill and Antrim as general counsel, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Appointment of executive secretary. Dr. Beresford.
Yep, each year it's necessary for the board to appoint an executive secretary on or before January 15th to perform secretarial duties as required by the School Board of Trustees. Administration is recommending appointing Mrs. Colleen Nobis as executive secretary.
Thank you. Do I have a motion to appoint Ms. Colleen Nobis as executive secretary?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion? All those in, oh, we're gonna, go ahead.
All I want to say is I just always appreciate everything you do for us, Colleen. You make us look good, and you're always a pleasure to work with, so thank you so much.
Thank you. All those in favor of signifying Colleen Nobis as executive secretary, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Now we will move on to the appointment of cable television representative.
This is always a thrilling part of the meeting. Background is that each year the board traditionally appoints a cable television representative during its organizational meeting on or before January 15th. The administration recommends the continued appointment of Mrs. Christy Cloud as the cable television representative for the district.
I have a motion to approve Mrs. Christy Cloud as the cable television representative?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
discussion. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. We will now move on to the appointment of the Carmel Clay Parks representative.
Thank you. Each year it's necessary for the board to appoint a board member to the Carmel Parks Board on or before January 15th. It's recommended that Ms. Kristen Koke be appointed as the Carmel Clay Parks Board representative.
Do I have a motion to approve Mrs. Koke as the Carmel Clay Parks Board representative?
So moved.
Second,
Second.
discussion. I just want to say thank you, Kristen, for volunteering for this. It is such a wonderful thing. We are proud partners with our Carmel Clay Parks and with ESE and all the different things that they offer, so we really are excited that you'll be a representative for the board. All those in favor signify by saying aye, please signify.
Aye.
Aye. Motion carries. Now the Carmel Redevelopment Commission representative.
Each year, the board traditionally identifies the Carmel Redevelopment Commission representative during the organizational meeting on or before January 15th. It's recommended that the board identify Mr. Greg Brown as the Carmel Redevelopment Commission representative.
Do I have a motion to approve Mr. Greg Brown as Carmel Redevelopment Commission representative?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Discussion. Greg, thank you so much for this. This is a wonderful opportunity for you to be a city commissioner and partner with our redevelopment in order to make sure that, as we are such a large landowner, to make sure that the interest of the board and everyone is representative. So thank you so much for your volunteering to do this position. All those in favor of all those in favor of Mr. Greg Brown as the Carmel Redevelopment Commission representative, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. We will now move on to the school board policy liaisons.
Okay, it's recommended, we'll start out with the responsibilities of the school board include developing, evaluating, and adopting local policies to govern the schools and students. That's found in Indiana Code 20-26-3-5. School board policy liaisons will serve as the primary contacts for the board members, administration, and legal counsel to recommend policy updates. The school board we recommend that Ms. Louise Jackson and Ms. Jennifer Nelson Williams serve as school board policy liaisons.
Do I have a motion to approve Mrs. Louise Jackson and Mrs. Nelson Williams to serve as school board liaisons?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Any discussion? All those in favor of approving Mrs. Louise Jackson and Mrs. Jennifer Nelson Williams as school board liaisons, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. We will now move on to establishing the salaries of school board members. Dr. Beresford.
Each year, the board traditionally establishes salaries of school board members during its organizational meeting on or before January 15th. It's recommended that school board salaries remain at $2,000 per year per statute.
Do I have a motion to approve school board salaries to remain at $2,000 a year per statute?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. Any discussion? All those in favor of having the salaries remain at $2,000 per year per statute, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0.
And just a comment, I would recommend that you never figure out how much that is an hour because it will be really depressing. But we appreciate your service.
That's really weird, Dr. B, because some people think we do it for the money.
Better off with the paper out.
We will now move on to public comment. We have no public comment this evening, so we will move right into consent. Our consent items include personnel, claims, payroll, authorization to sign agreements for private residential school placements, and minutes from the regular session November 28th, 2022. Do I have a motion to approve consent?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
Thank you. All those in favor, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries. We will now move on to action items. We do have one action item tonight. At this time, I do request a motion to suspend the regular Board of School Trustees meeting for the purpose of convening the Carmel Clay Schools Board of Finance. Do I have a motion?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second.
All those in favor of suspending the meeting, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Mr. McMichael, will you please provide the board with some background information regarding the Board of Finance?
Yes, each year in January, it's necessary for the board to appoint a Board of Finance. Our recommendation has been that it be the same officers as the school board members. And after that, then the board will receive our investment policy and our report of investments, and then I will also provide information relative to what's referred to as the fiscal condition of the school corporation, which were provided with what's referred to as fiscal indicators from the state, and I'll share some of those with you.
Thank you. The first action of the Board of Finance is to appoint a president and a secretary. The administration is recommending the president and secretary of the school board also serve as president and secretary of the Board of Finance. May I have a motion to approve?
So moved.
Do I have a second?
Second?
Any discussion? All those in favor of recommendation the president and secretary of the school board also serve as president and secretary of the Board of Finance, please signify by saying aye. Aye. Motion carries 5-0. Next, I'll ask Mr. McMichael to present the report of investments for 2022, a report on the financial condition of the corporation, and to present information regarding the district's investment program.
Okay, excuse me. First, with regard to the report of investments, you have that included in your report. This past year, the district earned $73,944.72. I remember a time when that was over $1.5 million. But the interest rates, as you can see here, the high was 3% and the low was 0.009%. So on a positive note, last year we earned about $23,000. So as you know, inflation's up, but so are the interest rates. So we are earning more on our funds. So that's good news for us. With regard to the investment policy, you have that included in your report, but basically in the school district, we're only permitted to, primarily we only are permitted to invest in government-backed securities. So for us, that's essentially repurchase agreements or CDs. And in recent years, for a number of years actually, we've left our money in the checking account because it's repurchase agreements are purchased overnight, and so it's always invested. And that has been as good or better than individual CDs, but that may change now that the interest rates are going up and the interest on a CD is better. So we'll see how that goes as we go through this year. So with regard, and I may need some help from Colleen to get this up on the screen, but I want to share these fiscal indicators. In 2019, the state legislature added a new requirement for school corporations pertaining to fiscal indicators, which are provided by an entity referred to as a Distressed Unit Appeals Board. This was formed after a couple of districts in particular found themselves in serious financial trouble. And so the thinking was, from the state and the state legislature was, school boards ought to receive at least annually some insight and information about the financial condition of the school district. And so they developed this board, and if there is a district in trouble, then the board is interacting with the district, and there's a whole process that goes on there. But these indicators, then, it's the intent to provide you with at least some basic information about the school district's finances, and so that's what I'll be doing here at this point in time. Okay. So first, I'll share with you that for the 22-23 school year, our student count, referred to as ADM or average daily membership, was 15,945 students. And below that, you'll see that in Exhibit 1 that we have 4.32% of English language learners, just under 10% free and reduced lunch, and just under 12% of special education students. And you can see the 10-year history here. And so our English language learners has gone up a bit. And you can see that compared to over the years, as well as spatial education. This is the same information then, just in graphic form. Exhibit 3 represents the combined fund balance for the general fund, education fund, operating referendum fund, and the education fund replaced the general fund in 2019, and we began adding the rainy day fund beginning in 2020. So in Carmel, we generally present information on the referendum fund and the rainy day fund and the education fund being by far the largest, the basic fund. But the other funds provide supplementary support, and actually the operating fund even more than that, which I'll speak to later. But these are the funds that primarily are used for the day-to-day operations of the school district, particularly in terms of in the classroom. So there's another fund called an operations fund that provides for transportation and facilities and so forth. But these are our major funds for the educational program. You can see here that our fund balances, and so these stay relatively level. You see it dropped in 2021, and that was by design. We gave what we referred to as a COVID stipend, so that had an impact on our balances. But we do plan to bring this back up to a minimum of 8%. And you can see the same information here then as a percentage. And you can see over the years that it's ranged from about as high as 9.5 to 6.9. So I want to take a minute to talk about the operating referendum fund. In 2021, the operating referendum was 17.8%. That means that that's about $25 million. And so that fund is in place for up to 8 years, and then it has to either be replaced or renewed. And so you can imagine the challenges we would have if it was not renewed, because literally from one day to the next, January 1st, if it was not renewed or replaced, our funding would drop $25 million. And so you can imagine the significance of that. And that percentage has actually gone up a bit over the years, which you'll see in just a minute. So this is the same information graphically, and you can see here that as a percentage it has increased some over the years, and that's because the percentage of revenue coming from the state has been less than the increase that we receive from the local referendum. But that's a positive thing. I'd also share with you that there are a little over 300 traditional public schools. I'm not counting charter schools and so forth, but what's generally considered traditional public schools. There's over 300 in the state, and Carmel is one of about 55 that has a local operating referendum. Now in Hamilton County, it seems normal because everybody around us has an operating referendum, but if you get outside of Hamilton County, it's not nearly as prevalent as it is here. So in conclusion, we have maintained financial stability over this period. Our average cash balance has been, over the past 8 years, is 8.4%. Our minimum balance that we want to maintain is 8%. And more recently, we have a goal to increase the balance in the future to about 12%. So we'd like for it to be a little higher than it is now. That will also help us as we sell bond issues. The Standard & Poor's would like to see us have a little more cash balance than we have now. So that concludes my report, and I would respond to questions if you have them.
Questions from the board?
What's our percent level right now in cash?
It's about 8%. I believe it was showing just under that for the end of 21, and so we haven't closed the books on 22 yet, so but we'll be in that range.
Any other questions? All right, if there's no other business for the Board of Finance, may I have a motion to adjourn?
So moved.
At this time, we will reconvene the meeting of the Carmel Clay School Board Trustees. Thank you, Roger.
Mhm.
We will now move on to reports. Dr. Beresford.
Thank you. For those of you who thought this meeting went pretty much by script, it's because it pretty much goes by script whenever we do the reorganization meeting. This meeting is actually taking place in school districts all around the state, and these similar things have to be done per state statute. So appreciate and welcome to the board, our new board members, and it's great to have you, and we're going to do some more great things for Carmel Clay Schools as we move forward. I also wanted to point out that what we did not appoint today was legislative liaison, and the board has chosen to defer that appointment to the term to be from July 1st to June 30th to better align with the legislative session. So we didn't want to change the legislative liaison, mid session. So that will be picked up again, and we'll go from there. Jennifer's serving as our legislative liaison through the end of this session. Another piece I wanted to share is that times are a-changing, and the school board and CCS administration will be moving the start time for school boards to 6 o'clock p.m., beginning with our next regular session on January the 30th. So take note of that change. So everybody's going to get home earlier on a school night, and we're pretty excited about that. And so that'll be just a small change. Dr. Oestreich and his team had a hiring fair and had over 50 people attend that hiring fair. And we are now in the process of finishing the employment process for 20 substitute teachers, several IAs and custodians, and even a couple of bus drivers. So kudos to Dr. O and his team. There's not too many districts talking about having, this kind of luck. So I imagine we're already hearing that strategy is going to be replicated around the county, I'm sure. Also wanted to get the word out that the Parent School Safety Academy is back up and running. So applications are now being accepted for this year's first session of that. The academy consists of 2 evening sessions. They'll be on January the 24th and January the 26th. And this is a great opportunity for current parents and caregivers to learn more about the protocols and practices in place across the district in our school safety programming. So Mr. Woodward will be leading that. And it's a really great program. We've gotten great feedback from the people who have attended that. Was mentioned a little bit earlier, but academic transitions are going on right now. And so the start of the new semester marks the start of planning for next year. And I know it's kind of hard to think that way when we just started the second half, but it takes a lot of work to get ready. So the Carmel High School Freshman Academic Transition Night for current 8th graders, which is the class of 2027. Every time I say that, I just kind of get a little shook up. But so the class of 2027 was tonight. So they got to tours of the school, and that process of transitioning into the high school from middle school's begun. And it's really important, these transitional experiences, and a lot of research on that. The more transition experiences you have, the better the transition to a new grade level is. So that's going on. It's wrapped up already from tonight. Current 5th grade families should be receiving information on the upcoming middle school activities that are an important part of the transition to middle school. And finally, kindergarten registration, the class of 2036. 2036 will start on January the 19th. And families should watch for emails. And I know the emails are really long, but you need to read all of it and read thoroughly so our students can get off to a great start in 23-24. My bell ringer for tonight is that this week is actually School Board Recognition Week. So you'll find some flowers, and there's nothing says we appreciate you like a bundt cake. We have all about bunts, and then we also have some swag baskets for our new board members, so you can have some Carmel Clay schoolwear. And we want to encourage everyone to show their appreciation for the many hours that you serve, and in you guys' case, will serve. We know you promised already. And on behalf of the students, staff, family, and community, that is Carmel Clay Schools. We thank you for your work, and I hope you enjoy the goodies we got for you, and we want to thank you on behalf of Carmel Clay Schools for your service. And that concludes my superintendent's report.
Thank you. Congratulations again, Greg and Kristen. You have successfully completed your first board meeting. You only have 4 years more work to go. So congratulations. We are so excited to have you here. I will now take a motion to adjourn the meeting.
So moved.
Meeting adjourned. Thank you.